Hello, my name's Andy, and you might know me as Nebulate99, or if you see me on the server, I'm generally called Andy. So I want to do a very quick intro to the Blackfish, on how to fly it, all the tips and tricks I've learned along the way, and hopefully this is of use to improving the quality we see on the server. So first thing I want to talk about is on EU2 server right now, it appears to be night. So we have our regular night vision, which is not great in terms of range, and it's got this annoying kind of circular effect. So we're going to fix that by going to the arsenal, and we are going to go to headgear and change our heli pilot's helmet for a regular pilot's helmet. And now when I bring up the night vision, I will have this lovely full screen crystal clear version. So the next thing I want to talk about is what can actually fit into the Blackfish. So it has a vehicle load capacity on the server. We have the vehicle version, and in it we can fit either anything up to 4 quad bikes. We can fit in 2 prowlers of any type. We can fit in the service van, and we can fit in the unarmed hunters. It will only fit 1 unarmed hunter, unfortunately, not the 2 like the prowlers. But you may be able to fit a quad bike in with it. I've not tested it. The armed prowlers with the guns on top will not fit, unfortunately. It's just the way it is. Additional to this, there are a few extra vehicles we might get which will fit in there, which includes all types of off-roads and the Marshal. But anyway, let's head on out to the Blackfish. It's just outside the base. And let's also remember to put our earplugs in so we don't get deafened. Oh, they're already in. And we see it just out here. Interesting. So we can see on the map, this is where we spawn at the base. We are just outside of the Blackfish marker. So the next thing to know about the Blackfish is how to get vehicles in it. What you do is you drive up near the loading bay. If you are touching the back of the bay, you probably won't get the option. But on the scroll menu, we have load vehicle. And we are now inside. If I go to internal view, you can see that we're here, stuck inside, and we can't see much. So I'm going to leave this vehicle loaded and jump out. So the pilot side, we have a door on the left side of the vehicle. There is none on the other side, so you always need to come this side unless you have the armoured version of the Blackfish gunship. And we're going to jump in this. The next thing I want to say is that before you do anything in this thing, you will have many bugs that you come across. The first of which is if you turn the engine on, you may find the throttle jumping to 100% whenever you are touching on the ground. The fix for that is to go to group management and make yourself a new squad. If you're not the leader of your squad, that is what causes that bug. So just create a new squad and call it whatever you like. I'm just going to call it BF for Blackfish. And as long as we are the only person in that squad, or we are the leader of that squad, i.e. we have the star next to us, we shouldn't have a problem. The next thing you will find is that communication is an issue, because the moment you start typing the Blackfish, the thing will rotate its engines fully up vertically and try and enter a hover and lose all its airspeed. Now, this is a problem because anyone sat in the vehicle behind you in the Blackfish is not attached to this vehicle communication. So if I talk in vehicle channel, they can't hear me. So you will need to type either in side channel or indirect. You can try talking in direct, but realistically over the noise they will not hear you anyway. So it's best to get all your communication out of the way before you need to take off. That means finding the landing zone. That means communicating who will do the unload vehicle option, because we have an unload vehicle option as the pilot, and they have an unload vehicle option as the driver. And if we both try and use it, and I beat them to it just ever so slightly, their unload option will disappear and it will center on the eject from vehicle option, which doesn't work out very well when they're parachuting down to the ground. So now that we have this done, I'm just going to go to outside of view, because we have no HUD on until we start the engine, we can see that the rotors on this are actually angled forwards from the very start. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn the engine on but keep the throttle at 0. You can do this either just by jiggling the throttle or actually from the scroll menu, engine on and off. If you do experience the 100% throttle bug, scroll menu, engine off is the way to just sort things out so you can get your bearings. What you can see now on the screen is that we have, at the bottom left of our HUD, we have our angle of the rotors. So what I'm going to do is I have my flap controls. If I twist those, what you'll find is that my flaps go up and down. And if I use the hover hold button to turn auto engine vectoring on, my flaps control changes to being able to rotate the engines backwards and forwards. So on the ground you cannot have them further forwards than 72 degrees, but from the outside you can see my flaps suddenly change the angle of the engines. What we're going to do to take off is note that it takes a lot of power to get this thing off the ground. Typically you're talking around about 70 to 80% of throttle. So what we're going to do is push this up to 100. As soon as we start to leave the ground, you'll see it takes a while. We're going to dip the nose forwards. We're going to use our flaps control to put a little bit of engine tilt on. And as we start moving, you'll see the direction of travel indicator come up, and we are going to put our engines all the way forwards and fly into the sky as soon as that starts to nosedive. And we're now airborne. Next thing which is worth doing is bring up landing gear, and we can turn our radar on as well if we want to be able to see all the pretty pictures of where all the vehicles are. It's worth mentioning, with the radar display we have on the MFD, IR grenades also show up on there, so if someone wants to mark their vehicle for you to land in and pick up, that's a great way to do it. What you'll see with the radar is that as we fly over the base, all of the vehicles and choppers over there just have a little marker on the HUD in the central square, which is quite useful for spotting Tigrises and stuff from quite far away. I'm just going to zoom out our view on the radar. So the next thing we want to do is talk about how to insert people into the AO quite safely. So right now we are very close to the AO, and I should have done this in advance. This is another thing we should have done in pre-flight. So if we look on the map, we can see that we have quite a lot of angry anti-air threats in there. So we're going to look for an area behind a hill where we can screen the drop. We're going to look for an angle of travel where we can screen the drop, and we're going to go for a nice bright colour like yellow. Just going to check we're not flying into the ground, which we aren't. Go to map, and I want to drop. There's tree lines and there's a forest there, so because we are dropping them with a vehicle, they should be fine to travel a fair bit of distance. They just want to get close to the AO. So we're going to drop here, and I'm just going to put a couple of extra markers in so I can see the timing of the drop coming up from a distance. 3 evenly spaced markers, then we hit the drop. So things to note with the Blackfish is that when you drop a vehicle out the back of it, it instantly gets a parachute, and the parachute is instantly deployed. So we do not need to be a kilometre above the AO for them to safely deploy. We can actually drop very low, and in this case I'm going to be screening them behind a hill at an altitude of hopefully around about 50 meters. So, which is why our direction coming in is also screened by this hillside and allows us to have this clear travel without having to do any rapid altitude changes. So we're going to come in very fast, as fast as we can go in this thing. We're going to come in fairly low. You can see that our altitude is just on the right, top right of the HUD, and on the top left we have our airspeed. Coming through the hillside, I'm going to scroll through the menu to bring up the unload all vehicles option. Every now and again I'm just going to reselect it just to prevent that disappearing, and as we come to the drop site at 80 meters we are going to drop it and pull up. And what they will do is they will parachute down out the back, and they will fall to the ground gently, and hopefully they don't land on a tree or a building, which is a problem, but hopefully they should be down safe. So the next thing I want to talk about is landing. So you can land this just like a plane. You can use the auto land feature and probably crash into a UAV that someone's left on the runway, but I prefer to land this as a helicopter so I can actually get it back to our preferred destination. So what I'm going to do is mark our Blackfish with just a pin, and I'm going to loop round to the side of the airfield. So we're a good few clicks away, and I'm going to be doing a turn so I can allow myself to go quite heavily. I'm going to hit the air brake just to bring my speed down to about 300. And I'm going to use my flaps control with the engine vectoring still under my control to put the rotors up fully vertical, and I'm going to turn around and face the airfield to my destination. As you can see, I'm coming quite fast, and from my flight direction of travel indicator I still getting a lot of lift. So I'm just holding the air brake, bringing that down, and as it starts to drive right now I'm putting on a little bit of throttle, 1%, 2%, 3%, just trying to balance that out so I don't drop too fast. And you can see that I suddenly hit a huge dip there and have to jump up to about 50-60% to balance it out. So I'm going to keep my direction of travel indicator pretty much lined up with it. I'm actually coming in a little bit low, so I'm going to dip my nose forwards just a touch, add a little more throttle, bring me up over it. You can see our landing zone. Bring the gear down, and we're just going to drop the throttle just a little bit again to 55, and up a bit so I don't hit the tree. A bit more throttle to 72. We hit the tree anyway, and we're going to gently touch down about 56% throttle. And that is landing in the Blackfish. So we should now be down. If your tail is sticking out over a road or anything, you want to move it forwards, just push the tilt rotors ever so slightly forwards and give it just a couple of % of throttle and it will move. In fact, the throttle we gave there didn't even register as 1% and we were moving forwards. As a nice tea, bring the rotors vertical up for anyone else using this. The next thing I want to talk about is the ammo drop crates, which is a script they added on INA 3. So we're going to take off again, and we're going to do a very messy hover over to the loading zone here. Back up quite a bit. There we go. As I come down, we are going to put the rotors forwards, get some forward momentum, and bring it down gently. So now just use the tilt rotor just to put us slightly forwards, just to taxi up to where I want to be. Bit too much throttle, we're going to touch the end. Rotors up to 0. And engine off. So we are close to the sign, but not too bad. So the next thing I want to say is this giant circle here on the vehicle lift zone. That has a special script attached to it which allows you to put a cargo crate into it. If you go to this Arsenal person, we have added supply crate to heli, which also applies to the Blackfish. As you can see, it says supply crate added to helicopter. You need to be above 60 meters to deploy it. So what that means is taking it off and flying to our same spot. I will edit down the video quite considerably. So now that we are airborne and we have our crate loaded, what this script does is it adds a vanilla Arma crate, which has some Titan missiles, some general MX ammo and the like, and it will drop it from the craft on a parachute. So what we need to do to drop it is we need to be above 60 meters off the ground, and we have this hold space to drop power crate prompt, and it's on a 4-second timer, so about 600 meters out at this speed. I'm just going to start holding down space, and it should drop around about on target. And if I turn around, what we should find, bring us into a hover again, hopefully. Oh, we're gonna die, we're doomed. You should see that our crate is there, parachuting down to the ground, dead ahead of us. But let's get over there and see where it landed, as we were trying to drop it just in the field past the vehicle lift. And it looks pretty close on target. We see it in the field beneath us with its flare and smoke on. So we're going to bleed off our speed, we're going to gently settle down on the ground. Explode. Because I didn't put any gear down.